As you look around, you will notice that computers have grown almost essential to everyday life. They range from towers to laptops to phones and even to objects like calculators, smart TVs, and even some thermostats. And you are watching Computers Bit by Bit. None of this would have been possible without the electronic numerical integrator and calculator, otherwise known as the ENIAC. The ENIAC was built by the University of Pennsylvania with funding from the Census Bureau in 1946. It was one of the first modern computers. It was designed to predict missile trajectories during World War II. By 1964, the transistor was invented for use in computers by scientists at Bell Laboratories. In 1969, the Unix operating system was released by Bell Laboratories. Unix is still used today and has underlaid Mac OS X.
Probably one of the biggest things that's changed over the years with computing is the size of data storage. So here you've got maybe an older hard drive that can hold just megabytes of information. I don't think the label says exactly how many megabytes, but as you can see, it's huge in comparison to today's hard drives that can hold terabytes of information. We definitely did go through periods of time where there were floppy drives. Yes, they were called floppy drives because they really were floppy at that point in time. Those did make way to floppy disks that really weren't as floppy, that kind of thing. But now we have really an abundance of storage, whereas there was a time where, floppies like this maybe hold 1.44 megabytes, and we moved up to, flash drives that can hold millions of times that, or billions of times that even. And yes, there were times when you were doing installations of operating system, and actually you were just constantly swapping out these little floppy disks till you could get the installation done. So we're real fortunate nowadays to have the abundance of storage space that we do, and it takes up a very small footprint.
In 1975, Bill Gates and Paul Allen formed Microsoft and began to write code for Altair and later IBM.
Well, one thing I can remember when I first got started with computers, I do remember having an old Zenith computer that was totally command line based. So it was a lot different as far as what you can do with them today. But that's when I probably very first got interested in computers. I remember doing some very basic programming in my math classes in high school with Apple machines, and that was all coding with BASIC. So that was kind of some interesting stuff at that point in time too. I think I do have a lot different perspective on computing than say the average person today does. We're so used to computers being connected to a network and being able to access information anywhere in the world. Back when I first got interested in those first computers like I was talking about, they really didn't connect to anywhere else. So we were kind of excited that we could set up a computer to basically go through a database and compile like mailing labels or something. And what you would do is you would start that when you were leaving at the end of the workday, and then it'd be ready for you the next morning because it would basically take it all night to go through that kind of stuff. The type of stuff that nowadays these computers can do in just a couple of minutes. So it's changed a lot. I do think it's kind of interesting. There was a time frame in there when we started connecting, or we didn't even have personal computers that could do some of that type of stuff. So we would try to get time where you could connect to a mainframe and have it run some program or stuff like that. But then, of course, everything shifted to having personal computers that were very powerful, able to do all that stuff. But right now, we're kind of in a shift again, at least in some parts of computing where we're shifting over to these things like Chromebooks, where we're not storing anything locally anymore, and now we're relying on big server farms to store data and do things for us and have that computing power again. So there are some things that have come full circle. One thing that's changed a great deal since my early days with computing, in the original times we had just like a disk operating system, totally command line interface. You had to type everything in, everything came back in a text-based format. Now, of course, we have very nice graphical user interfaces. We might have systems with a 3-monitor setup, that kind of thing. They might have a touch interface. We're doing a lot of things with tablets and, of course, with mobile devices and phones. And having a totally text-based interface really isn't something that most people would even tolerate anymore.
In 1981, Microsoft released the Microsoft Disk Operating System, otherwise known as MS-DOS. It was a command line operating system, and Windows ran on top of it until Windows ME, which was released in 2000. In 1983, Apple released the first personal computer to use a graphical user interface. In 1985, Microsoft released its own graphical user interface and called it Windows. In 1996, 2 students at Stanford University created what is now known as Google. In 2001, Apple released OS X and Microsoft released Windows XP, both of which were groundbreaking at the time. In 2007, the original iPhone was released. In 2009, Microsoft released Windows 7, which is still extremely common today. In 2010, Apple released the iPad, which popularized the tablet form factor. In 2015, Microsoft released Windows 10, which was a free upgrade for anyone who had Windows 7 or 8. The newest pieces of technology that computers are being used in are smart devices. Smart devices include objects such as smart Wi-Fi light bulbs, smart TVs, and wearable devices